And welcome back to the SMITE Pro League. Our first set of the day now concluded with a 3-game set between the Highland Ravens and the Jade Dragons. We move into our second of 3 sets of the day. Gilded Gladiators and the Atlantis Leviathans now squaring off. Both these teams have yet to be able to find a win so far in this phase. We'll see which one will be the one to claim their first dub today. Let's take a look at the schedule and the standings, though. See how things have shaken up so far in our first week and what we can still expect to come today and tomorrow. Leviathans and Gladiators, our second set. Kings and Hounds will be the one to round out our Saturday. And make sure you tune back in tomorrow, same time at 11 a.m. We got the Hounds and the Gladiators, the Warriors and the Dragons, and the Ferrymen versus the Ravens to cap off our weekend for week 2 of the SMITE Pro League here in the Road to Masters. And as well, taking a look at the standings between these teams, between these divisions, to kind of get an idea as really what's at stake for some of these squads, especially this matchup here, Charlie, because this is maybe something that we wouldn't have really been able to predict if you look at these at the very beginning of the phase. Gilded Gladiators, we maybe had some expectations to be a little bit lower seeded, maybe been able to find, one win here or there, a couple of games, but the 0-3 Atlantis Leviathans, not the position we were expecting to see this team, Charlie.
Nope, and that's something that I think is going to be massive for both of these squads here, is really making their mark. Because someone's going to get their first win, that's obvious, but how are you going to get the first win? Is it going to be an overwhelming win? Because these are two teams that are towards the bottom of the standings, so you want to be able, I would say most teams want to be able to just get a quick, decisive 2-0 in a situation like this where both teams are lower seeded and you think, hey, we're trying to really up, but unfortunately neither one of these teams have really found that rhythm, I would say, their team synergy. I think they're a bit lacking in that department, so could be both for, I would say, both of these squads. They need a win.
Yeah, it's been a little bit difficult for both of these squads, whether that be the early games, the late game defenses, or maybe even some of the late game sieges for some of these teams out there. And for the Gilded Gladiators, it's been a bit of a struggle for them trying to maybe find some of that identity for their team. We talked a little bit to Kyrmi. He feels that early game aggression seems to be a bit of the name of the game. We saw some of that in their Jade Dragons matchup just last week where they were able to find first 15, 20 or so minutes, but it came down really to that team fighting stage where we were seeing a little bit of the woes of this team so far. And Trelly, maybe that's at least where we can kind of start to build for the Gladiators to see that level of growth. Is okay, we know that they've got their early game. Now it's to work on that mid game. Now it's to work on those team fights. So that way they don't have to be forced to go into those highly defensive style of compositions we've had to see multiple times.
Yeah, unfortunately, that has been the conversation. I mean, that we've seen some decent plays underneath their base defense, right? And I think a lot of teams can flourish when they're underneath their Phoenix and they get that extra help. But the issue has become, yeah, your early game's fine, but your team fight needs to be worked on. So how long is that going to be the case? I guess it's only week 2. It's still early days here for the Gilded Gladiators, but I want to see them be able to translate that early aggression that we know and we love from this squad into some late game objective play, some early objective pulls, some team fights that go their way. That sort of thing really does need to be ironed out, and I'm thinking, maybe today could be the call, because it's not like the Leviathans have it figured out either. It's not like they have been lights out gameplay-wise, so this could be a big step for the Gilded Gladiators and trying to work on that late game team fight where they're actually on point, following up with each other, having good clean comms where it's just, hey, I'm going to CC this target, we're going to go in, follow up, that sort of thing. That's what I'm looking for here for the Gilded Gladiators. That's what I need to see from them in a matchup like this, especially when the standings of both of these teams are towards the bottom.
I think you're right to highlight the fact that really both these teams have been struggling around that team fighting stage. Once we kind of crest over that 25-30 minute mark is really where we've seen either the struggle of sieging for Leviathans or the struggle to team fight if behind at that point. We've seen what the Gladiators can do on base defenses. We've seen the compositions that they've built while maybe not necessarily trying to build a siege defense style of composition has worked out for them. Merlin, Martikros have really made their way into the wheelhouse for both the mid laner and for their hunter as well. So I'm curious to see the adaptations the Gladiators have made from week 2, or from week 1, I should say, now moving in towards week 2.
Yep, and that's something that we need to see as well. I think that you highlight the picks and bans. That's something that I've liked from them. They've had decent compositions. They've been able to string together some comps that I think can really benefit going to late game. Mm-hmm. But that's not what we're seeing those comps really flourish. So, big things to come, and I'm hoping to see those changes implemented here from the Gladiators in particular.
Hopefully we will get to see some of those changes. We did have a moment to sit down and talk with Kyrmi a little bit to see kind of his thoughts into week 1 and moving into week 2. So we'll go ahead and throw it over to that interview video.
Going 0-2 in the first week kind of sucks for us. However, I do think most of the games were close. I think we had one bad game against the Dragons game 1. Game 2 we threw a little, and then I think both the games against the Ferrymen were pretty close. We play the Leviathans next week. I think we'll play well into them. I think our dual lane actually does really, really well into theirs. I think Spring Split Zapman is in effect right now, so that's going to be nice for us. fineokay is always really good. However, I think he likes to play a more weak side approach, which will be beneficial for us. And then Sheento is still on ping, so unlucky for them, but still fortunate for us. I think the teams they played, with one of them being the Onis and having a close set, it's unlucky that they didn't edge out the win. However, with having a player on 180 ping will always make it really challenging for a team to like succeed really well, right? Especially when it's someone as important as Sheento. I think it's really important for us to beat them this time around, especially because they are in our division. I think getting a second chance will be good to try and 2-0 them. Obviously, the more wins, the better.
You heard it there from Kyrmi, a very important win for the Gilded Gladiators to be able to try and take down the Leviathans, because being in division, you do have to play against them twice, and being able to maybe kind of take advantage of a worse situation for Leviathans early, find that win now. That way, when you get to that full strength Leviathans, maybe still stand a bit of a better opportunity up against them. So Gilded Gladiators looking for their first win, but so are their opponents. Once more, the Atlantis Leviathans 0-3 so far to start out Phase 2 has not been the strongest performance as far as pulling a set win, but few individual games, a couple of individual moments for Leviathans that have looked really good for this team composition. It really just has kind of come down to once we get to this late game, the team fight's been a little bit struggling, and I think Kyrmi right to highlight the fact that part of it maybe being that Sheento hasn't really had the best of times, whether that be being on ping or for a lot of teams putting in a lot of focus towards taking down Sheento.
Yep, and I think he also really zoned in on a lot of how the Leviathans like to play. Number one, he called out Spring Split Zapman, which is just funny because it's true. It seems like Zap does take a bit to come online, maybe just having, a bit of a break in the early stages of the phase, but their dual lane in particular likes to play a little bit far back, not diving forward, not really looking for aggressive plays. fineokay, sure, if there's some ganks coming his way, he's able to get aggressive, but more often than not, he plays passively as well. It depends on where Adapting decides to go. That's really how the Leviathans have been playing as of recent so far. It's been to mixed success. I guess it's been no success because they haven't won, but it hasn't been complete blowouts. They've been in pretty much every game they've actually had. It's not been a complete blowout. They've had some opportunities to find some wins. It's just been closing out those games that's been the issue. So I think, ironing out some of those issues and trying to play through dual lane, trying to get Zap online could be smart calls. I just want to see what Adapting is going to play, because I think his God pick in particular influences a lot of what the map looks like. Whether he's on, Susana, he's looking to gank early. If he's on the Vamana, he's probably playing passively and just going for farm. If he's on this Alquang, he's looking to hard carry, right? He's trying to get all the kills and get all the farm on the map. And that pick in particular is going to influence a lot of what the Leviathans are looking to do, because both of these teams, they're okay with scrapping early. They're okay with throwing out some blows pre-level 5, pre-ultimates. And that's the kind of play that I'm expecting for both of these squads.
Yeah, once these level 5s start to kind of tick around between these junglers, we've been seeing Adapting get very active over in the dual lane. We've seen Kyrmi kind of do a little bit of the opposite, maybe focusing a bit more towards the solo lane. Do you think maybe that will play into a bit of maybe some of the drafting for these two teams, kind of dependent on where these junglers want to put their priority? Maybe you get Adapting something that can really get that early CC, that early damage out there, try and put some pressure on Stu over in that lane.
Could be the call. I think there's a lot of picks that have been taken away from Adapting. I don't think he's gotten to play the Thor very often. Maybe not at all. The Alquang has been something that has been let through, and when it does, he looks very good on it. Those are the kind of things that I think Adapting's still looking for, of course. If that's the case, if the Gilded Gladiators are going to give him not that level of respect, then yeah, I want to see it. I want to see Adapting look for that aggressive play, because we know he can make them.
Yeah, Adapting in the Leviathans and the Gilded Gladiators fishing for their first set win, but it's all going to start here in game number 1 between the Gilded Gladiators and the Atlantis Leviathans. Change-ups between both of these teams to make coming into this set from their previous week's performance, their previous sets as well. Wondering what we'll end up seeing between the picks and bans for these squads. As you mentioned, Thor, something Adapting has not gotten on his hands on yet this season, one of his most played gods over the course of his career. But he will not be able to play it this time around. The Gilded Gladiators banned that one out. And the Leviathans start working on some of the healers. Hell taken out immediately. I gotta imagine Aphrodite Maybe Umoja, Terra, possibly some picks that we'll maybe see follow immediately afterwards.
That has been the trend, right? A lot of these healers still dominating the meta. The Horus, one of the most sought-after picks as well, is currently in play. You don't want to deal with how much sustain is coming, and I think with teams that struggle with the late-game team fights, being able to lose the first fight and not just lose out because they sustained full is probably something you want to focus in on. The Marti Cross, something that Stu has been having a fantastic performance on, despite the fact the teams have been sort of getting pushed in the early. I think the Marti Cross is just a very strong burst pick. That's going to be the call. The Vamana, acting as a pseudo-ban, taking it away from adapting, and also be the first grab there for the Gilded Gladiators, has been just a very high pick rate, right? When it does get banned, sure, but when it gets through, doesn't always have the best performance. It depends on the matchup. I think surprising to take it this early on, but maybe they just really didn't want it in adapting's hands.
Yeah, we've seen both fineokay and adapting piloting this pick, so maybe acting as not just a pick for the Gladiators, but as you mentioned, a ban in 2 different fronts for those teams. But that now gives 2 picks over to the Leviathans. Still a lot on the table. As mentioned, the Marti Cross taken away. That's something that Stu has been playing to fairly great success so far over in that duo lane. But one of the most popular picks that we've been seeing, Nox, who had her first competitive loss so far this phase just earlier today, will be locked in alongside the Serqet. So a lot of early lockdown for the Leviathans now drafted for their team.
Yeah, I can't lie. That top 2 is nasty. I mean,
Yeah.
that is a lot of CC. That is a lot of high pressure. That is 2 picks that have been very sought after for pretty much
Closing
any
my
team.
lobby.
Yeah, for any team in the league, and those are 2 picks that I never want to see if I'm on the other team. So, gonna have to watch out to your beads. Have to watch out for the lockdown that Nox and a Serqet can provide. And more often than not, the answer to that Nox was the hell. But if you look, the Levi's, they took it away. They don't want to deal with that hell. They don't want to deal with the cleanse. The Gilded Gladiators are going to have to look elsewhere for cleanses to deal with the Nox combo or the Serqet combo. Khepri could be a decent answer, but we haven't seen too much of that pick. And I don't think, Inbound's good on the Khepri, of course, but I think he likes to play more pressure more than anything, trying to play through that duo lane, him and Stu. I think have that synergy built up. So if that's the case, some more pressure could be the call. You're running out of mage picks, though, because more often than not, we've been seeing a lot of mages in that support role. Unless Inbound's going to Baron here, might have to dip into the Guardian of the Warrior tab for the next support pick.
Gotta note that Aphrodite's still available. We have seen Inbound take it once before. We'll see if he decides to go within the top 3 for the Gladiators. Instead, Hercules makes his way into the top 3 for the Gilded Gladiators. Surprised that Hercules made it this far through, but maybe with some of the ban priority around this Hercules, maybe not as shocking to see it drafted through. And a Hebo to round out the top 3 for the Gladiators. So, now that we're moving our way towards this next ban phase, Leviathans with the Nox, unlikely to need any kind of mage support for themselves. Aphrodite could be eating a ban by the Leviathans, and as you say, maybe now force Inbound onto one of those, I don't want to call them worst support picks, because they're not really, but less prioritized compared to the mage supports we've been seeing.
Yep, you call it. Afro's the ban. It looks like more Guardians could be coming through. Of course, it could be the Hercules support. More often than not, that isn't the case, but Inbound's done it. And with the Hebo, you already have plenty of magical damage, so that's not going to be the biggest issue. I'm just curious about if this Hebo pick is going mid, how safe Snoopy is going to be. And if it's going into the jungle and Inbound is taking the Hercules into support, then I guess you already have your top 3 there in that regard there for the Gilded Gladiators. But the Terra is going to be the next ban there for the Levi's. They want to get rid of that sustain, while the Gilded Gladiators are just trying to focus out Sheento. Big AoE mages. Not too many skill shots involved with Baba or Agni, so trying to focus those out. Probably the smart call there. Put Sheento onto something that he's got to, get a little bit more skillful with. And I think he's been struggling a fair bit. The Janus pick was fine. I think that's kind of the. It's difficult because that's not what you think about when you think of Sheento. Just he had a performance. It's usually he's popping off. So, he's been having to try to find some of those guys that are really in his wheelhouse. Curious what he goes to here with all these picks fanned away.
It's been a very rough start of the season for Sheento on the Atlantis Leviathans. Been a bit of a rough start for both of these 2 teams. Merlin left open, so Merlin locked in for Sheento. And I was actually wondering if maybe this Hebo for the Gladiators could have gone into the jungle, because we've been seeing a lot of Merlin from Snoopy more often than not whenever he gets the opportunity. to draft that pick in. So potential for this Hebo to go there. Snoopy has been flexing around his god pool just a little bit. Iset, Merlin, Yu Huang, and Agni, 4 of the gods that he's played within his last 6. Agni, 3 of his last 6 games. And this Hebo might actually just end up going over to Snoopy in the mid. Vamana or Hercules to the jungle for the Gladiators now with the Khepri locked in by Inbound. So, Charlie, based off our history, we've been seeing a lot of Vamana jungle compared to the Hercules. Do you think that that might be the call for the Gladiators in this matchup?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably the Vamana jungle. I do like the Khepri here. I shot it out before. I think it's got a decent matchup into the Nox. The cleanse is just going to help you out. But there's not too much initial burst, right? The Levi's, I guess the crits from Serqet, if you're going a crit build, is your best real burst option until this Merlin gets online. More often than not, there's a lot of damage that the Levi's can really control. So if you go for that Khepri res, you're not going to be seeing too much to proc it. It's just going to say, oh, wait. Let's wait for the res to go through, and then we'll go for that kill. Maybe it's just the cleanse. And if that's the case, the Gilded Gladiators picked one of their best options. The hover here is going to be Yorm. A pick that we haven't seen since the Tablet of Destinies meta has left us. Still does do good damage. You know, is relatively safe as long as you're holding on to that World Serpent, but not the best matchup into Hebo, I find, unless you're getting an Aegis, which most solo laners are not. You're going to be taking the brunt of that crushing wave late game. This might be even more surprising. I think I might have preferred Yorm, just to have the fact that I haven't seen King Arthur in a bit, because he doesn't appreciate the current meta we're in. But fineokay is a great King Arthur, right? When he was in meta, fineokay was one of the best. So looks like just wants to go for some synergy that he's had before, and he can dive Hebo very well. He's got the knockup immunity. Maybe that's the call. He wants to not really care about any of these knockups that Herc or Vamana or Hebo are going for.
Is it maybe the fall of Bluestone that's taking King Arthur kind of out of the meta here? Maybe the rise up of Golden Blade for some of these solo laners? Maybe a little bit more of the sustain that's keeping him out? I mean, drafting this King Arthur does seem a bit out of left field for fineokay, but is there maybe any reason you could think that he would be wanting to draft this kind of a pick up against the Gilded Gladiators? Yeah,
I mean, Bluestone is useless. Not useless, but it's not in a good spot in comparison. You have to go Sundering Axe. If you're going Sigil King Arthur, I'd like to see how long it takes you to clear a wave. In most of these solo laners are going towards Sigil. So we'll see. A lot of King Arthur's items are just not in the meta at the moment, so that's the reason we haven't seen him. But I assume fineokay's been running it on in solo lane on his stream and feels just fine doing it into the matchup. If that's the call, maybe when the rotations come through, he'll be able to pop off with it.
So for these two teams, again, both of them wanting to find a strong start in game number 1 for the set to try and push themselves to finding their first set win of the phase. For the Gilded Gladiators, Charlie, a team that's been historically okay, at least being able to get through that early game, has been struggling maybe towards that team fight stage in the late game. How do you like the team fight for the Gilded Gladiators up against what the Leviathans have drafted?
I love the team fight if they're able to get late game. Rama's a pick that comes online real hard once he gets a couple items online. Of course, Hebo at level 5 just gets access to a delete key once Crushing Wave becomes a thing. And you've got 3 great targets for it, the Serqet, the Cern, and the Merlin. They're all going to feel the wrath of that ultimate. But it does take some itemization. So I think the Gilded Gladiators might have to play slow, let this Vamana get some movement speed, let this Evo get online, let the Rama get some crit. Once those things happen, their team fight looks real solid, whereas the Leviathans, they have a lot of CC, they have a lot of lockdown. They're pretty much coming out of the gate with damage. Besides the Merlin, everyone else is ready to scrap at level 2, something like that. So I think the Leviathans might have that pressure early game if they're able to use this comp to its strengths.
So maybe for the Gladiators trying to weather the storm a little bit early on to try and keep the Leviathans at bay more than anything. We've seen what the Leviathans are able to do in early games as well. Take their setup against the Kings, for example, able to at least drop the Kings down about a 7,000 gold deficit. Again, it really just came down to some dances and tangos around the Fire Giants, some of the sieging for those compositions. I immediately look at the Leviathans, and one thing that you're right to highlight, the lockdown that this Nox provides, and maybe even this King Arthur. Is there a strong follow-up maybe for the Leviathans with one of these two picks to try and turn and burn on one of those lockdown targets?
I mean, it seems to be just lockdown into Merlin damage, lockdown into Cern damage. If the carries are there, you have follow-up. I mean, a lot of single target CC with the Nox, the Serqet, and throw the King Arthur in the mix. Beads burn is going to be very important. I wouldn't be surprised if Inbound in particular takes a lot of the pressure here. The Khepri's a big target. It's hard to miss. And if you're not getting beads or if you're burning those beads, if Khepri dies first, you don't have to worry about Scarab's Blessing. You don't have to worry about, playing around that ultimate.
We'll have to see if the Gladiators or the Leviathans come out on top for game 1 and try and find their first set win. To do it, we got to get through this first one. To do that, we got to throw it over to Dave and Mifflin.
That's right. One of these two teams escapes this best of 3 with their first win of Season 10. The other, unfortunately, remain winless. It would be an 0-4 start for the Leviathans with one more game played than the Gilded Gladiators, one more set, who would fall to 0-3. So really, Miff, I think both teams, I don't know if desperate's the right word just yet, but rabid for a win early in Season 10. Every team is going to have their opportunity to qualify to Masters. It's clearly not the start that either was hoping for, but building a little momentum here against a struggling opponent could be a good start.
Yeah, I wonder. Between both of these drafts, I like both a good deal. I had hypothesized in the previous set that single target denial supports would be very strong in a Serqet. We'll see whether or not that's the case here, as Inbound has elected to go towards that Khepri. Should prevent that 100-0 potential from adapting. We'd seen adapting. It's Transcendence Deathbringer. Seems to be his favorite build on this Serqet, so we'll see. Going to be a little while until he gets active on map. Ronngyu, this is just annoying.
Ronngyu wants to be obnoxious. Will he be able to steal anything away?
He's going for it.
Doesn't look like it just yet. Looks like everything was picked up by the Gilded Gladiators there. So this likely means Ronngyu heads into lane a little bit behind, but what's happening? It's adapting, rotating over. Is this a level 2 gank on the Gilded Gladiators side of the map? Adapting blinks over the wall. Stuart thought he was safe. Shell's got to get used. And Stu will be okay. So will Inbound. And Stu picks up purple. And Inbound gets green. All things considered, Gilded Gladiators feeling okay, minus the half health on the HP bar heading into lane.
That is an awesome attempted gank, man. That'd be a mental crusher to start this set. Fortunately for Stu, does make it out alive. Does sacrifice a bit of wave, though. That really did delay his rotation in towards lane. I think 2 archers survive from the original wave, so 4 minions zoned by the Leviathans there. The Gilded Gladiators will be playing catch-up. Around level 3, that's where we'll see whether or not that actually comes to paying itself in dividends. But adapting doesn't sacrifice too much in making that rotation. Should have delayed his own level 3 by maybe another 15 or so seconds, but considering the power curve of Vamana, I don't think you're overly concerned about it. It's not as if Kyrmi is just going to start running the map. He needs a couple of items before he can get involved.
Well, Adapting was able to split camps with Zapman, so Zap did not fall anywhere behind, at least from what I can tell. Inbound on this Khepri should be disruptive throughout the course of the game. Extra utility. And Khepri has been one of the popular picks over the course of Season 10 so far, alongside the Nox, who has been very important to the win condition of a few teams that we've seen so far, and them adding their wins. It's that Scarab's Blessing that's so often talked about. Disruptive, the second chance in a team fight.
Ooh, smart.
Dash forward from Zapman, but an abduct countered out by Inbound. And that's just a little glimpse, a silence down immediately into a dash forward from Zapman. Gives you an opportunity for a kill, but really it's just about mounting more pressure against this duo lane.
I love how Inbound plays that one. Gets out of the silence field, immediately drops the Rising Dawn onto Stu, get that damage mitigation available. If it's not Khepri, Stu's down to about 10% off that.
Inbound. Play aggressive, but so will both junglers over in solo lane, but this one read out largely effectively. Haven't talked much about this King Arthur myth, and it's a fineokay pick through and through, but has not been a solo lane pick at all here in Season 10.
Oh, he can't
Inbound
move.
as he body blocked.
He
Oh,
can't
that's
move.
perfect. From the Atlantis Leviathans, and it's a turn and burn from Zap and Ronngyu. And that is simple. It's hard to set up, but it's made to look easy by Ronngyu and Zapman. And Inbound ends up dropping nonetheless for first blood.
Bad to worse. Blue buff invade on the right-hand side as well. The Leviathans keeping pressure on both these side lanes. I wonder what Bobby's doing in the jungle right there. Maybe trying to rotate in towards the purple. Ensure that Adapting wasn't invading on his own, but just gets caught out. Now this Khepri, that all-important level 5, delayed a bit more. And it seems Ronngyu has found his plan, right? This Nox just so obnoxious. Sit in the enemy jungle, poke in some damage, slow down the farm, playing spoiler to the Gilded Gladiators. But it's more than that. It's more than just being annoying. It's allowing Zapman to solo out a lot of this farm as well.
Yep.
Should give this Cern a real good fighting chance in this lane.
No, over the last... Was Cern all of Season 9? It was definitely towards the end. I don't remember much from the beginning of Season 9, to be honest with you. That was a
What I
whole
had for lunch yesterday.
That was a whole year ago? How am I supposed to remember that? But Cern had really roared into the meta, at least towards the end of
Stu's
Season
5.
9.
No ult?
Rongyu's
there we
low.
go.
Snipes are up. 1 will hit, 2 will not, and I'm not sure 3's got the damage,
Yikes.
even if it did hit. Admire the attempt, though. So clearly Inbound and Stu on the same page. You don't want to give a free back. That's a low health target there on Ronngyu. It's just going to delay things through a little bit further. Adapting level 5, Kyrmi also level 5. Myth, how does that change the jungle battle in your mind?
Well, Adapting's gone for a scaling build, assuming that it is Transcendence. He could change his mind and move in towards Hydra's Lament if he so chooses. But for now, I would imagine Kyrmi's got a bit more pressure to give. Movement speed, power, the ability to chase down his opponents. Very good with that Golden Blade. Just a phenomenal stat stick and synergizes well with Vamana's kit. But even then, raw burst potential, Adapting might still have the edge, just by nature of being Serqet, having that ability-focused style of play. It's around second item, I think, where Kyrmi should be able to get involved a little bit more so. But looking at the compositions, Dave, I don't even know where I'm sending this Vamana if I want to find pressure early on. Could be a rotation towards Zapman, especially if Inbound's there, that Abduct will be so massive for facilitating all that auto attack damage that Kyrmi needs. But if Kyrmi's on the left, who's going to defend the right? It's just Scary D against 3 for his blue.
Scary's got some indicator that something's going on. Sends an excavate over and actually secures his own blue. So a nice moment there from Scary D. Secures his blue buff, and the Leviathans spent a little time rotating to that side of the map, keeping Scary afloat on this Hercules myth. Going to be important later in the game, because Scary's had a pretty quiet year so far, as the rest of the Gilded Gladiators have, but the potential of a Hercules, you know, it's really at an all-time high here in this current meta, and from what we've seen, that Golden Blade really goes a long way in stabilizing the laning phase.
It does. It gives you so much pressure. It's the ability to push these waves in a tower, deny gold to your enemy. But up against King Arthur, is that going to be the case? It's been a while since we've seen King Arthur, but he's got Glad Shield in first slot. It's a good deal of survivability. Scary. Maybe not as threatening as he would be against the standard just mages in the soul lane or squishier targets. So I think for now, fineokay just fine. Hercules will make the difference in the late game team fight. It's that facilitation, it's that space creation, it's the ability to initiate the fight. fineokay more so really is just creating space by dedicating his body.
Whoa,
Bobby,
no.
You all right?
Bobby's the one who's in trouble, and the Scarab's
He's not
blessing
good, dude. Oh no.
will delay, but delay is all he'll be able to do. That's a good collapse in from the Leviathans, and maybe we call it mispositioning a bit on the Khepri. Also, maybe not expecting 4 members of the Leviathans to be there. Could say the same for Stu, who combat roll out of the way just in time.
Yeah, Bobby just caught no man's land. Immediately loses his life. At least has the wherewithal to hold on to the shell. Does lose out on the ultimate, so you know, you win some, you lose some. It's hard to say you won anything when you've gone down twice so far. The only deaths in the game. Gone a Thieves stacking up slowly too. Gonna be a while till this Khepri's tanky, and the pick potential this Leviathans draft is just sky high. Anytime Adapting's anywhere on the map, you got to think there's that 1v1 potential. All that lockdown to give time over to his teammates to rotate through. Bobby's going to have to figure out something.
Zapman uses Wild Hunt and Beads. He'll consider it worth. He's able to get away from Kyrmi. Suppose that's the flip side of this Vamana. We know later in the game when there's a team fight happening, can pop the ult, rumble into the back line. Finding ganks relies heavily either on mispositioning or teammates provide real specific lockdown onto your target. Man, this blue buff has just relentlessly been walked at by the Leviathans, this time successfully. Double knockup from Snoopy, only because Ronngyu had joined his teammate. Ronngyu, now you're starting to get to that point in the game where this Nox is going to start making her way out of lane and just look to be disruptive. It's already worked out once against Inbound, and the roaming Nox is always a threat.
Just whoever's locked down, you got to believe there's damage behind it. It's that threat on beads that Nox brings at any point in the game, really. I mean, If you're in the jungle, you're concerned that maybe there's damage over the wall or something like that. So that relic really under threat. Kyrmi has made his home in the duo lane. Hasn't quite hit pay dirt. But with all this attention on the left side, it's allowed adapting to control the right.
Yep.
Not going to win the 1v1 up against Snoop. Not just yet. Need that Deathbringer first, so just going to go ahead and escape this situation. But generally when junglers have a delineation in where they want to play, it's clear. Adapting on the right, Kyrmi on the left. You'd expect there to be trades on map, but it's just adapting, making things happen. The best we'd seen from Kyrmi so far is that beads burn on a Zapman. He's got 70 seconds left, but hasn't gone down just yet, and instead feels confident enough to pull this gold free. Whereas adapting has been so successful that I'm not certain Scary D's had a second blue buff this game.
Stuart's not even going to get a chance to steal this, and the Leviathans now extend what is already a healthy lead, 3,500 in both gold and experience.
Jeez.
And Miff, when we think about the Leviathans, this is the pace of game I think we were expecting to see from this squad from the onset. You add fineokay, talented, one of the best in the world in the solo lane, adapting on a resurgence his way back into the SPL. Figured it would be a methodical, burn, team fight later on style of gameplay, and it has not worked out that way. However, game one is looking that way. Pyromancer pulled by 3 of the Gilded Gladiators and confirmed, but it's full disengage. Inbound left to the Wolves, won't even use or might not have gotten the chance to use Scarab's Blessing. Pyromancer, but it's for the 3rd death of the game. Onto Inbound. All 3 kills from the Leviathans.
Man, and let that be an indicator of how powerful Noxholt can be. Ronngyu got hit by Vamana knockup, Snoopy's ultimate, and I believe Abduct, and he took about 10% of his HP.
Yep.
That ultimate just reduces so much power. Had it come out just a little bit sooner, maybe even messes up that arithmetic on objective secure. Instead, though, I believe the Gilded Gladiators able to grab that one for themselves. Should be able to disengage from there. Only trading out Bobby. Not the biggest deal. Inbound already 0-3. Not even sacrificing too much of his own farm. Maybe at a half level to a level behind on Ronngyu. His bounty, pretty small at this point. So long as Khepri doesn't get a kill, it's not a big deal. Once you're at like 6 deaths, if you're 0-6, dying is no longer a big deal.
Yeah. Maybe I'm crazy, but I don't think anyone even picked up the runic bomb. So
No, they had to evacuate.
So it's really just objective out death for the Gilded Gladiators. Won't have that to set up, confirm objectives, tower structures, anything like that later on into the game. It's about 2 minutes to the next Fury, so there is a little bit of downtime. But if the Leviathans can stabilize, which they've been able to do, that next fight could be looking fine for them as well. Some important power spikes to keep your eyes on. Snoopy really needing that second item to get completed, because right now, Miff, Sheento with Deso, Rod of Tahuti's in a really strong spot. And Adapting and fineokay have both gotten a similar mindset in their build. Transcendence finished for Adapting, but it's not right into Deathbringer this time. It's right into Stone of Binding, and fineokay has done the same. And so maybe it's this turn and burn style of composition that Stuart needs to be worried about. Beads and roll out. He chose to stand his ground, send some autos towards Ronngyu, and it cost him one of his relics.
Now Adapting has a clear line to get active on the left side. Has for the most part been on the right. Bobby narrowly avoids that shadow lock. Had that connected, I think that's just the Khepri's life, or at least the ultimate. So good juke. Buys the Gilded Gladiators a bit of space, but Dave, has anything in the last 12.5 minutes indicated wins to the Gilded Gladiators? Have you seen anything that has gone well for them? It feels like
yes,
the entire
Bobby
match
dodged a shadow lock.
Oh, that was good, but it's just been mitigating loss. It's not looking for wins here. The Leviathans, they're doing everything they want.
Rongyu's ultimate is out. Just saw those 2 items from Stuart, enough to whittle down about half the HP of the Nox. Haven't seen Adapting over on left much. Mostly been pressure on the Scary D's blue buff. Now Inbound is under threat. Wild Hunt used by Zapman. Didn't connect. It might have actually resulted in a kill there had that ultimate hit. But Inbound survives this time. Adapting a bit late to the party. fineokay. 2 members of the Gilded Gladiators looking at him, but Kyrmi is only concerned about confirming the blue buff right now. No fighting to be had. It's a difficult King Arthur to kill off. And with a little jungle assistance, Scary D finally able to grab blue. And really, Miff, the focus of the junglers have now swapped sides with Adapting with a gank on left and Kyrmi defending blue on right.
Yeah, I wonder what goes wrong there. That ultimate from Adapting should have secured the Wild Hunt. Maybe miscommunication, throws Inbound into the wall as opposed to towards Zapman. Just allows him to escape. Inbound's becoming tanky as well. That Gauntlet Thieves finished up. Spirit Robe. I think a very smart pickup this early in the build, considering how the fight's going to start for the Leviathans. Is it every single member of the Leviathans going to proc that Spirit Robe passive? I believe so. So it should be very tanky at this point. But how do you leverage it? Where do you get aggressive? I'm not certain, Dave. I don't know that the Gilded Gladiators are confident in their ability to fight just yet. We've got pretty big power spikes on the way. Stuart finally starting to look towards a bit of crit. I like to pick up Executioner first, so consistent damage on tanks versus raw burst potential. Kyrmi also considering some crit, that hidden dagger in second slot, but it's no longer Season 7. You don't get crit from Tier 1s or Tier 2s. You got to finish them before you get the full value of that item, or any value, really. It's just, what, 5 power and 15 power.
Yep. Scary D was behind the Leviathans a moment ago. Will rejoin the rest of his team, but fineokay has done the same. Damage on to Fino, but this is the issue with being on the other side of the team fight. It's going to force out Scarab's Blessing. Big piece of utility missing from the fight, but a carry missing from the Leviathans. Zapman run down, and it's Kyrmi who opens things up here. Is there enough, though, in this fight for the Leviathans to keep going?
Fine.
Seems to be for now. fineokay steps forward. In the back of the fight, Ronngyu gets chased out by Scary D, and it's actually a great fight for the Gilded Gladiators. Both soul laners were on opposite sides of the engagement. Maybe low enough health bars for the Leviathans to do something.
Kyrmi trying his best to create space, but nothing gained. The Gilded Gladiators reset the Fury. The Leviathans showing presence. Just enough. Everybody too low. Snoopy much too low to stick around. fineokay put on a whole lot of damage in that fight. I thought he'd done enough to turn things around, but Kyrmi's target selection just too good there. Had to create enough space, find a couple of key kills. But it's the Leviathans again. Even in a lost team fight, they're the only ones walking out with an objective. fineokay, as a stalwart defender, keeps up his post around the Fury, makes sure that the return play isn't there. The Gilded Gladiators forced to reset. I'd argue win for the Leviathans, but we don't need to argue it. We can get Doug, pull up those charts for me, keep me honest. Small loss for the Leviathans.
The data argues myth. A little downswing, but and then an upswing when the Pyromancer.
We'll see what this runic bomb gets up to.
We'll see what happens. Yeah, we'll check back in 15 minutes when they finally drop the runic bomb somewhere.
And if that runic bomb gets a Phoenix, that's a big win for the Leviathans.
That's a big win for the Leviathans. You're right. We'll keep up to date on where the objective killing utility gets used. So you're right. It's a good glimpse at a fight for this King Arthur, and I think that's going to be important for fineokay to get, you know, back into the swing of things here with his Leviathans teammates. Back to comfort. Could be a kill onto Snoopy, a Scarab's Blessing, well timed. Snoopy will proc it, and that's a heads-up play by Snoopy. Step back into the damage and let the Scarab's Blessing pop, bring him right back in. And remember, Scarab's Blessing got used so early in the last fight, and it still went well for the Gladiators. This time, though, the Leviathan's in a much better spot. Stu looking for a steal and unable to do so. Now just some damage on the other end, and the snipes just a bit late. Leviathans get both of the objectives across the map. Just getting Scarab's Blessing seemed to be enough over in mid lane to give the confidence.
Yeah, sent Snoopy back to base as well. Sure, he revives, but at 10%, is he going to stick around the fight? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Holds on to the Crushing Wave. Should be able to put up a defense here if he so chooses, but tower's already low.
Adapting.
Leviathan's already grouped.
Adapting's got a great route behind here.
Oh,
no, Snoopy.
Can't do it twice.
It's going to get locked down by fineokay, and that's where, I mean, even if it's not a shadow lock, it's a silence that's preventing a lot of disengage, and man, Gilded Gladiators, they're going to get chased down here. Scary D's in a really bad spot. Wild Hunt used. Hits its target. Scary D tanky enough, though.
It's just walking out.
Might just delay this kill, and instead it's Inbound who switches sides, and Inbound lives. And it could have been so much worse. Scary D in red HP. Inbound is as well.
They wouldn't.
Could it be the runic bomb if
they wouldn't.
That makes that play ultimately worthwhile. They've got a Merlin.
They would?
And they've got a lead.
Fire Giant pulled. Kyrmi nearby has ultimate. Just needs to get in there. The members of the Gilded Gladiators that are close enough, can't be Stu.
15.
Need to buy some
He's
time.
not going to have his snipes. Kyrmi's around the backside.
They got
runic
it.
bomb.
The steal!
Oh, what happens is that threw a runic bomb, and it's a Kyrmi. The dice roll doesn't work for the Leviathans, and the umbrella from Kyrmi shields his squad from a massive blow early in game one. The Leviathans had all the damage but the last bit, And it's the jungler of the Gilded Gladiators making this deal happen.
That is exactly what you needed. Who needs the zone Fire Giant? Why protect it when you could simply take it away?
Worst case, Smith, the Runic Bomb didn't do anything.
Oh, the Runic Bomb gave them false confidence? No,
it was even worse than we expected.
That was such a massive loss earlier on the Pyromancer. No, all credit due to Kyrmi. A phenomenal play from the jungler to keep his team above water there. Finally, the gold equalized for the first time in what feels like 19 minutes experience back in their favor. Kyrmi up 3 levels, actually. I don't even know when exactly that had happened. Adapting, struggling to keep up in farm here. And the Gilded Gladiators now, we get a first look at what their offense should be. The conversation earlier is they've been playing reactive. They've been buying their time. They've been mitigating loss. Now with Fire Giant, you need to build a lead. I want to see it 2,000-3,000 by the time the power play is over. Plenty of towers to collect gold from. It's just what will the Leviathans do in the meantime? Is it base defense? Is it split push elsewhere? fineokay takes out the tier 1 on right. Well, the 2-man core, the dual lane, take out the tier 1 on left. I like this. The Gilded Gladiators set up a wall in the jungle. No flanks from the Leviathans. Got to grab at least 2 tier 2s, I think, especially if you're trading Pyro.
We get a retry on the Runic Bomb. The Leviathans will. fineokay picks it up. Tier 2 melts down into the earth over in the duo lane. So win condition now officially opened up. Now the Gilded Gladiators have been in these moments before where they've wrestled control back of games. Remember, could have gone 3 during that kickoff tournament. But this is where the Gilded Gladiators have had trouble. Their sieges have fallen just a bit short. It looks like this one is going to as well.
Wow.
Sheento burns through Scaredy and Inbound. Might not fare much better. A double for the Merlin and a knock-up from Snoopy. Does not avoid the stun.
Wow.
Leviathans have rolled right back into this game, and they've only lost a tier 2 and left. And Myth suddenly can shove back down the other side.
Scaredy just thinks he's tankier than he is. Just steps up way too far into that tier 2 tower. Ronngyu locks him down with a shadow lock and keeps it easy for the rest of the team. I don't care how tanky you really are. If 5 people are hitting you while you're standing still, you'll probably fall pretty quickly. The Leviathans from the brink tested by the Gilded Gladiators and crushed them on the first attempted defense. It's a tier 1 tower, a Pyromancer. Okay, we'll regroup, we'll defend. And they do so beautifully. The Gilded Gladiators, I'd call for them to have the lead post-power play. It's the Leviathans who went out once more.
Now let's think about that earlier Runic Bomb Myth. It gave him false confidence.
Okay, yeah. Let's trace it.
They lost the FG.
That's bad.
However,
Yep.
they knew on the defense
They're better.
that they could fight against the Gladiators, which has now given the Leviathans control right back. So I think now suddenly that earlier Runic Bomb worth the
Major
blunder.
play.
That's right, big play.
Well, hold on. Let's see the charts. Is this the biggest lead the Leviathans have had?
No, it's close.
It's close.
It's close.
But
it's right back. It's regained.
Yeah.
It's regained. But if this play now swings them back into complete control of the match, it's the earlier Runic Bomb that really makes the difference. Ultimately, you could trace a win here for the Leviathans to the earlier Runic Bomb in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to be interested to see, though, Myth, what happens around this next FG, because it was an early pull from the Leviathans, then a steal from the Gilded Gladiators, and at 22 minutes, seems like pretty standard FG dance territory if the Gladiators feel like they can step up.
Yeah, the Leviathans are on defense, though. The Gladiators aren't thinking about whether or not they can step up. They're thinking about finishing up the tower. No way.
We're just going to run the same play back.
You wouldn't.
Crushing wave. Oh, the stun from Fino. Goodbye, Snoopy. You thought you were safe, but you're not. Because fineokay's back on the King Arthur. Now we're tower diving a tier 2. Kyrmi sends a few crits in, but it's 1 for 3. Getting some payback onto Sheento, and adapting has made his way right back into this game with a double kill of his own. That is surprising from the Gladiators, trying to siege up the same tier 2 that they just tossed a lead away at a few moments ago.
They can't help themselves, Dave. They can't stop themselves. That tier 2 is their kryptonite. If I'm them, I'm pushing anywhere else. I'm probably not pushing again, honestly. The Leviathans likely to just grab Fire Giant. No way Bobby steals this one away. We've seen crazier, but I think a far shot from likely. I understand, you know, that you zone Sheento in the jungle. You send him a little bit further back. You think, okay, well, we'll just grab the tier 2, back up. Keep that gold a little closer to even. But once you see fineokay standing in front of you, once you realize Snoopy's literally frontlining, you gotta know when to fold them. The Gilded Gladiators, you can never accuse them of lacking confidence. You can never accuse them of cowardice. Perhaps a bit of pride, perhaps a bit of ego, but avarice maybe. Definitely not cowardice.
I'd rather have a team that wins by trying, or loses by trying, than loses by sitting by and doing nothing, you know?
Yeah, they're not sitting on their hands.
And they're not letting the game happen to them. Unfortunately, that is what's likely to happen throughout the rest of this game. Stuart is forced into his ultimate. Now suddenly the base defense from the Gladiators looking a bit better. fineokay takes a whole heap of damage. Snoopy's still dead for 15 seconds. A silence out from Ronngyu. Shadowlock doesn't hit, but Kyrmi's got ult once more. Great root from Inbound, and that actually sets up an okay fight for the Gilded Gladiators. That interplay between Inbound and Kyrmi, the double root into the chase down from the Vamana looked great. But all the Gladiators able to buy is a bit of time in front of their Phoenix.
Yeah, at least keep that Phoenix alive as well. That's a strong defense from the Gilded Gladiators. Leviathans grouped up a bit too heavily there. There's no reason Khepri root should be hitting multi-man targets. There's no reason that your carry should be so far forward when your frontliners are so far back. So the Gilded Gladiators keep the pace alive, if only for a moment. The Leviathans still have time to play with. Minute and a half on this Fire Giant power play. Could get in towards these tier 2s. I doubt we see them regroup on Phoenix, barring a couple of perhaps picks. And picks might just be under the eyes of the Gilded Gladiators. This is a play we normally see on the left-hand side. Significant grouping. It's an adapting that's going to walk into the trap.
Might, but adapting is 5-0. Who's really being trapped here? It might actually be the Gilded Gladiators.
In a 1v4?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, assuming it then turns into a team fight.
And it is.
Which is exactly what's
it's
happening.
Happened. Snoop, why are you so far up?
This is now, if Snoopy dies here, it's the third time in a row
it's
happened.
Again.
It's a double stun from fineokay, but Kyrmi solos out Sheento, who is not with the rest of his team. And so it's actually the Snoopy bait, and I think you can draw this right back to
the
first
Snoopy bait.
the first runic bomb of the game. But Sheento now falling. And Sheento's had his moments, has had a double kill or two this game. Miff, I feel like we've seen the story of Kyrmi dragging his team forward into games already play out once or twice this year. And it's got to be the Vamana. The 4-1 Vamana's got to get it done. It's not going to be... Maybe it could be Snoopy. It's going to take a little bit, though, at 0-4.
He's not getting too much stronger than this.
2 levels down, though. Tier 2 item and a starter item behind Sheento.
Oh, it sounds so bad when you say it like that.
Yeah, well, I can only say what's in front of me, Miff. That's literally all I'm good at. Stuart is just a tier 2 behind, so
okay.
The Ram, who is...
But Zapman's got a bomb.
Does have a runic bomb. And you know how we can find out the origin of that runic bomb? Is looking back to the first one of the game. Now, the Gilded Gladiators. This is the portion of the game where I do not envy shot callers, because in reality, we're starting to get out of control. We already are a bit there. 7K behind. You haven't won many of the last fights. You've relied on an overextension from, or mispositioning maybe from Sheento to find a kill. 27 minutes, it's still an early FG, and I feel like we've seen teams give these up and wait to fight around the enhanced Fire Giant.
Yeah, this is a significant gold lead for the Leviathans that should reveal itself on map. Take a peek at vision. They've got control of the pit and everything around it, but wards in pocket favor the Gilded Gladiators. Difficult to fight into that defensive position. But with Kyrmi already so far forward on map, could potentially go for a flank here, spotted out by Zapman and Sheento. Should dissuade him from rotating through the jungle. Leviathans, I don't think you coin toss this one. You could pull the Fire Giant. You could try and generate threat. You need to be careful. No sustain on your side means the Fire Giant's damage is legitimate. We'll stick to you. But ranged engage always good. And if Ronngyu could start it like this, so long as there's a bit of poke and it's not Scary D that you're doing it to, it'll work out.
Yeah, is our Merlin there? Scary D's wondering because not much damage made its way in. Kyrmi, remember last time in the jungle fight, had a great flanking mission. Adapting could be chasing down Kyrmi. This will be an interesting fight. Early damage to Adapting, but Kyrmi holding on to the transformation. That would tilt the scales back a bit further. For now, Adapting okay with a moment like that. Just chunk out Kyrmi just the littlest bit. Force him back to base. Silence, Shadowlock. That's the combo you're looking for. Ronngyu puts the silence down and instead dashes away.
Yeah, that silence placement pretty good. Places it between Scary D and his team, so had Driving Strike connected. Wouldn't have taken him too far. Grabbed again. But Scary takes no damage.
Oh, fineokay's in the back. fineokay has found Snoopy, and fineokay takes him up and places him back down, but the beads are off of this Hebo, and so is the crushing wave. Snoopy gonna be so limited now in the remainder of this fight. But Kyrmi steps forward, and he's got Sheento in his eyes, but Sheento turns the tables, and Sheento somehow lives, and there's no snipes.
No.
And the Scarab's Blessing delayed a double kill from adapting, and the team fight has gone all sorts of sideways for the Gladiators in the razor-thin margins, all in favor of the Leviathans who get FG.
I can't speak to the PEMDAS of it, but I believe Inbound misplaces the Scarab's Blessing. Perhaps hits Scary D before Kyrmi falls down, but regardless, that was intended for the Vamana. Does not connect. Revive doesn't even help out Scary D, just makes him a bit faster as he wanders into his own death. Now it's the Leviathans with 20 seconds
And a
to
runic
push
bomb.
the base.
And a runic bomb. We've seen teams slow around some of these Phoenixes, but there's only 2 members of the Gilded Gladiators alive, but still 2 towers on the map. They'll take the easy one. The Atlantis Leviathans will. The mid combo, mid support combo, Snoopy and Inbound have had a forgettable game number 1, sitting at 0-9. Add Scary D into that mix, and you're at 1-12. So really the initiators and Snoopy in particular has just been jumped on. Adapting has put together a really nice game here, Miff. We've seen the carry performances from Adapting so far. Has won a game or 2, has not won a set just yet. It looks like this Serqet has made some serious headway in opening up the door to a Game 1 win.
Yeah, I thought the Gilded Gladiators had caught a lucky break in the last team fight. Adapting jumps into the back line, fineokay there as well, but Fine times his ultimate a bit poorly. Causes a whiff from Adapting on that second ability, but able to disengage. Serqet so mobile. A blink forward into a dash back allows him to reposition. But from there, the Gilded Gladiators, maybe it's over-aggression. I like the call from Kyrmi to jump onto Sheento, and maybe if the ultimate's a bit better executed from Bobby, able to survive that one. Regardless, a significant win for the Leviathans that can be traced all the way back to that runic bomb.
The first runic bomb play
6
of the
minutes
game.
into the game, yeah.
And so ultimately, it was worth for the
I think so.
Leviathans.
I think so.
Ultimately, it was worth. So we got to be careful putting our stamp on it, because that's right when the game flips around. With 2 runic bombs. You got a minute left on the FG. You got 2 runic bombs. Would you like to see the Leviathans step forward, drop them both, and just give one concerted effort at this left side Phoenix?
I think ideal world for the Leviathans is wait for Kyrmi's ultimate, disengage, then all in.
Yeah.
But if you see the opportunity, and 2 runic bombs is 2,000 damage, dealing with the Phoenix could happen pretty quickly here. But the defensive capacity of the Gilded Gladiators and the burst potential of Snoopy, which has gone unseen so far. Snoopy, only about 9,000 on the damage chart. 1 good ultimate. Might even double his damage, something along those lines if he's hitting 5 people. Could just be the difference maker.
Oni fire minions in mid lane. 1 runic bomb dealt with. The other chunks some damage away from the bird. Adapting, winning the initial poke fight against Kyrmi. fineokay is taking a little bit of damage. Half HP on this Titan. Or for auto attacks. Drops the left side Phoenix, and Leviathans ultimately got what they came for.
Right side's still alive and has an enhanced minion wave there to play with, but the Leviathans will go ahead and reset. Left side Phoenix, the most valuable on the map. When you're dancing around the fire giant, when the game is about grabbing that neutral objective, it's that constant threat of enhanced waves starting to work their way down that left-hand side. That'll be the difference maker for the Gilded Gladiators. Who defends? Can you defend? Do you want to step up to the fire? Makes all those questions so difficult to answer. Whereas the Leviathans, it's simple. Group up on fire. If the Gilded Gladiators show up, drag out the fight, don't commit to anything, and eventually you're going to start winning naturally on map. If they don't show up, you get Fire Giant for free. So the Leviathan's in a very significantly advantageous position here. I think now the Gilded Gladiators, it's Hail Mary time. It's time to make it happen and make it happen fast. I like to see them group up and just try and push into this Fire Giant, try and defend it, maybe a steal, maybe take the team fight. The base defense just has not impressed yet.
Nope. Snoopy has upgraded his starter, but now a full Soul Reaver behind.
Which one is that? Is that Blood Soaked or Sacrificial? I don't see this item often.
You're the chair, too.
I
Why are you
know.
asking?
Doug, help me out. What's it?
Nope,
help me
Doug,
out,
don't
Doug.
do it.
I'm
Don't
pretty
do
sure
it,
that's
Doug.
Blood Soaked,
Don't
but I
do it,
can't
Doug.
tell, man.
No!
It's Sacrificial! No!
Yes.
Every ability he casts is going to cost him some HP,
There you go.
but it does 15% more damage.
Yeah, there you go.
That could stack up on a Hebo, though. Water Cannon's on about a 3-second cooldown, call it a second with all the CDR. If he's spamming, and he hasn't got the most lifesteal, just that Spear of the Magus for now, could cost him in some of these fights.
I don't want to be wearing a blood-soaked shroud anyway.
You want to wear a sacrificial one?
Yes, 100%.
I don't think so.
Given the two options.
I think that means you die.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll find out what happens with Snoopy. In Snoopy's case, maybe exactly indicative of his starter item purchase. Scarities use the beads so early. Fire Giant, half HP. No runic bombs here, so could be steal potential if the Excavate or Inbound makes their way in time. And no, that fizzles out. Excavate's actually way late in this fight. Scarities senses he's got to use a Kyrmi. Free entrance into the backline of the Leviathans. But has the Vamana been dealt with? Sure has. And Snoopy has not been able to turn the tables on the initiators of the Levi's. Inbound's got a Scarab's Blessing, and he will stay in place.
He's
EFG +2 and 99% of Snoopy. The Leviathans looking to close out game one.
The Gladiators didn't defend the base, and they didn't all in on the fire. It was a halfway call that cost them this team fight and potentially the entirety of the match. Leviathan stepping forward.
fineokay
Whoa!
has just been unbelievable. Snoopy does a lot of damage.
Whoa!
And is it enough? Scared E goes back in. Snipes from Stu. Won't be enough either, and it's a flashy moment from the Gladiators. Doesn't make a difference. The Leviathans, thank you for keeping my fantasy points alive there. Leviathans considering a dive onto the fountain, but Stuart remains spotless at 1-0-1. Look, Snoopy had a really difficult game that game. Inbound had a forgettable game that game. The Leviathans seemed a bit more consistent. Really, if you're not getting that Fire Giant stolen, this game's maybe over 5-10
minutes
before
earlier.
this.
Yeah, I agree. I really liked Kyrmi. I think that Kyrmi has a great performance this game. Tries his best to create space. Actually finds a couple very successful dives. Had the Khepri been a bit better executed, that maybe goes a lot better for them. But as far as that early game is concerned, which has been the purported strength of the Gladiators, I didn't see a whole lot happening. I mean, the ganks weren't attempted in lane. Objectives weren't defended. Team fights weren't going their way. They were losing out in lane just by having minions shoved into the tower. That's where the majority of that early gold lead came from. The Leviathans, they simply owned the first 10 minutes.
There's that one Fury fight, though, that turns into the Pyromancer and the Runic Bomb for the Leviathans.
You're thinking, maybe is that worth? And it was.
We were wondering, and it wasn't for a minute because they used it around the FG and it completely fizzled out. That's when it got stolen.
That's right.
But ultimately, that baits in. Think about it, the Gilded Gladiators twice on the Tier 2 siege.
Dude, if they just didn't throw on the Tier 2, you're
twice
right. How did I
Tier
forget?
2 siege.
That Tier 2 is
It was the
ridiculous.
Runic Bomb bait. It was the Runic Bomb bait from the Atlantis Leviathans.
Tier 2 MVP.
Atlantis Leviathans take game number one. Atlantis Leviathans plus tier 2 take game number one. Gladiators, time to turn it around. Game two up next.
Like a drug that I just can't deny, giving me the best
Welcome back to the SMITE Pro League. Game number 1 of our set goes over to the Atlantis Leviathans. And right now, one thing you should be doing is jumping into the game and equipping the new G.I. Joe skins in our collaborations with Hasbro to get G.I. Joe in. We are running a very special event right now. Go into your games and equip your skin to represent your favorite side, whether you're Team G.I. Joe or Team Cobra. And at the very end of the collaboration, the very end of the event, whichever team, whether it be Team Joe or Team Cobra, wins out, there'll be an extra special reward at the very end of that one. So make sure you're jumping into your games and playing on some of those brand new G.I. Joe skins. Thank you so much to Hasbro for partnering in with SMITE in order to get us some of those great skins in the game. Game number 1, though, Charlie, this is a very early game bout between these two squads out there. We even have an invade at the very start of the game by the Leviathans to try and catch the Gilded Gladiators off guard. Almost do so. Doesn't quite net a kill, but that does really set up the pace and the momentum, at least for the Leviathans, for this early game.
Yeah, it was very Leviathans focused, but there was some back and forth. I think Kyrmi had a fantastic performance on the Vamana. It just seemed to me like, you know, the engage was a little bit off. The Leviathan siege wasn't the strongest either. It was just an awkward sort of mid to late game. Of course, adapting absolutely pops off on the Serqet. fineokay really impressed me on the King Arthur. Wasn't a pick that I thought could work in this meta, but when the enemy mid laner is so far behind, and in this case is a Hebo that just is getting CC chain much like that, turns out fineokay wasn't under much threat. I mean, it's usually the mages that are dealing with these tankier solo laners, but yeah, Snoopy was the first target more often than not. He was at the front of the team fight. It just seemed like this Hebo wasn't able to get too much damage off, and because of that, the CC on the side of the Leviathans really did win the day. Whether that was the lockdown from Ronngyu adapting or fineokay, it was just a lot of that CC chain that was too much for the Gilded Gladiators to deal with.
Yeah, I think Myth and Dave both in the cast put up really well, which is just that the frontliners felt like they were so far back and the backliners felt like they were so far forward in some of these team fights for the Gilded Gladiators. Because of that, the Leviathans are able to punch me. In a situation like this, sure, you're going for the Fire Giant, so it makes sense to try and send Kyrmi. He's got the most, immediate AoE damage, has those crits to get out there, but just felt like it was a bit of miscommunication from the Gladiators throughout those team fights. Kyrmi, though, right to highlight him, a 4-3-1 on the Vamana, leading the charge for his team out there in that one. Top damage for his squad, but opposite side, a 4-1-11 Zapman, a 9-0-6 adapting. And fineokay ends undying as well, 2-0-13 on the King Arthur. So game number 2, Charlie, after kind of sitting back, can you evaluate how game 1 runs for the Gladiators? Maybe some changes for them to be made going into game number 2. What are some of the immediate things that kind of catch your eye for the Gladiators?
I want to see Inbound on something more aggressive. The Khepri pick, if you're not getting clutch revives, I don't think it gains too much value. And also I want the Hebo pick benched. I don't think that Snoopy was able to really get the full value of that god, especially because the dive was so intense. Something safer, I think, would have net Snoopy a much better performance. Hebo has that one-shot potential from ahead, from behind. He just gets sat on. So I'm thinking something with a little bit more safety. The Yu Huang, I think Snoopy's had some decent performance on. That could have been a better option here. So those are the two big changes I need to see. Because, again, the Khepri wasn't getting those impactful reses, and I think Inbound, he likes to W key more. He likes to be that frontliner. He likes to get aggressive, and Khepri doesn't cut it.
I mean, one of the self-proclaimed things by Inbound was he really did enjoy whenever he got to play some of the assassin supports. Obviously, we don't see very many of those, but it allows him to get very aggressive early in the game. You don't really get that same kind of value from a Khepri pick. It definitely feels like it's a bit more of a backline style of support there. So maybe, as you say, right, to change up some of the picks there for Inbound. And I think whenever we were in the picks and bans of that first game trailer, you brought up a good point of Hercules. While we have been seeing him more often in the solo lane, have seen a little bit in the jungle as well. It's something that Inbound and a couple other supports in the league did really play for a while in that support role. So maybe some flexibility if the Gladiators can get that pick once more as we hop into the picks and bans for game number 2. The Gladiators and the Leviathans. I think you're also right to point out that Snoopy felt like he was trying to play a bit more aggressive on a pick that really can't go all in by himself, especially given the deficit that he was at that time.
I mean, if he was diving with Kyrmi, that pick can work very well. It was just sort of sitting in the back line. It was almost like he was just waiting for adapting and fineokay to dive him. You know, like those ults were being used defensively, which sometimes you have to do as a Hebo, but if that's your style of play, Hebo's not the pick, right? Hebo's aggressive. He wants to blink to the back line, and I think in this case, getting him on something that has a little bit more safety could be the play. taking away the Nox is also a smart look here for the Gilded Gladiators. Still focusing on adapting, saying, hey, you can't have that Thor. We're not going to deal with that. However, a lot of what Ronngyu was able to do was just because of that CC, that lockdown that Nox provides. Taking that one away is a smart look. And I think the biggest change-up would be grabbing the Serqet in this spot over the Vamana of last time. That would really throw a wrench in what the Leviathans were able to do early game. Because adapting has had a fantastic performance.
First wave of bans that go through Thor, Nox, and Umoja for the Gladiators, Leviathans, Horus, Martigras, and Hell. So no real change-ups in that. There will be a Vamana once again for the Gilded Gladiators as a first pick selection. Last time through, Leviathans did take Nox and Serqet as a combo. Obviously can't take the Nox this time through. So maybe Hercules is an option. It was something that the Gladiators got to wait until second pick. You can still grab the Serqet if you're the Leviathans. So I wonder where the Leviathans will go with these top two. Vamana just feels like, at this point, Charlie, kind of one of those safe picks. Doesn't really tell your hand very much at all, at least in this first pick spot.
Yep, just a relatively strong jungle. Kyrmi had a great time on it. Could still flex over to Scary D if they want to play it in solo lane. Gilded Gladiators, as you said, don't want to show their hand, right? They're just picking a very strong top one and then sort of feeling out what the Leviathans go for. They are going to lock in the Terra and, of course, the Serqet coming in that second spot. No surprise there. That sustain that Terra brings. Good team fight presence. And also, that ultimate is going to bring a lot to the table. There's another thing you brought up is the fact that Inbound has played that Afro in the past. Did not jump for it last time in this spot, but is going to go for the Aphrodite, trying to save some of that immunity there for the Serqet CC and the Cernunnos. This is a different look. If you can connect an Aphrodite to a Vamana, ulting, Colossal Fury, stomping away, big crits, it would provide a little bit of safety, but you got to remember, in doing so, you are losing a lot of that peel. You are using your Afro, your support, I would assume. Could be mid, but more often than not it's a support. You're losing that peel into engage, so Snoopy's going to have to pick something that A, doesn't get left behind or can survive when left behind. I think something like the Morgan would actually flex really well here into a composition like this.
So Hercules does make his way to the top three for the Leviathans, surprisingly, with how much priority has been thrown towards that solo lane pick. So Terra, Serqet, Hercules for Leviathans, Vamana, Afro, Cernunnos. Trelly, I'm at a loss for which of these top threes I actually enjoy more for these two compositions. Maybe once we see what that next pick comes around through, maybe it can tip the scales one way or another, but feels like both these teams kind of just got the picks of whatever they wanted here, Trelly.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the Levi's just because of that Serqet. I think Vamana needs a little bit more itemization before it comes online, whereas Serqet pretty much comes baked at level 2, ready to find some ganks, ready to find some initiation. But you're right, I think the Gilded Gladiators were looking for a draft like this and are happy with what they have so far. The Susano ban from the Leviathans. It seems to me they're not convinced that Vamana is going back to Kyrmi. So just fearing that amount of 100-0 potential. And the Bakasura, so really fearing that jungle pressure from Kyrmi, just trying to focus him out. Maybe force him into that Vamana pick or, you know, just in case, have to deal with that extra pressure. In this case, though, I think the Cern Afro lane does have some kill potential. You know, if you're able to connect those kisses into the Bramble Blast, there could be some opportunity to get aggressive in duo. Just depends on what Zapman is going to go to here. He's been known to go to the Chernobog in times like this. That was taken away. There's a few picks. The Ishtar is still available, but that's fallen out of fruition a little bit, and it looks like we'll have to wait for last pick to figure out where Zap wants to go.
So for now, Merlin once more for the Leviathans, giving that one back over to Sheento. So he can have something safe in that mid lane, even playing on that higher ping for himself. Still throwing out a bunch of large circles or at least large areas. Makes it a fairly safe pick for the mid lane of the Atlantis Leviathans. Now the Gladiators with their two final selections. They've got their support and they've got their hunter, at least we assume so. This is really the only position we've been seeing Afro go to, has been one of these tank roles. Most often the support. Vamana's still up in the air. Maybe with these next two, we'll be able to solidify whether this one is going to Kyrmi, whether the Leviathans have maybe forced this one to Kyrmi, as you say, with those two jungle bans, or was this one slotted for Scary D all along? And maybe the Gladiators giving him a bit of a ruse with this Vamana. Still taking some time What from the Gladiators composition you see missing at the moment right now, Charlie? Because I look at the Leviathans, I see a lot of AoE control with the Terra, I see a lot of single target pick over there, so a lot of CC and lockdown for the Leviathans, and not so much so yet for the Gladiators.
Yeah, Chaac would fill that CC role you were looking for, which is something that I tend to agree. So far, it was just a lot of damage, and I guess Aphrodite's bringing some sustain into the mix. That Stormcall ultimate isn't so much lockdown as it is disruption. You know, you're not going to be able to follow up with that ultimate, but hey, you got some good annoyance and disruption for the Merlin, things of that nature. But the last pick is what is really enticing me here, because, again, there is a world where you could go Afro mid. It's just not traditionally where it's played, so Snoopy needs to go something that gets active, something that is not left behind when the Afro and the Vamana go to the backline. I'm still a big fan of the Morgan. I think it has a fantastic matchup in the Serqet. I'm surprised we haven't seen the Morgan sort of come into fruition once the Serqet starts showing up, because the Morgan just never really cares about Serqet, right? Unless you're getting 2'd. If you get ulted, you can just cleanse the ult off you by changing into someone else, and that goes a long way. This is the same style of pick as the Hebo, and there's 2 ways you can play it. You can play it like Snoopy did last game and sit in the back line and wait to die, or you can get Blink and say, hey, Kyrmi, we're going in. I'll meet you there, bud. I'm blinking in too. And that's what I need to see from the Gilded Gladiators. With a draft like this, you cannot sit back and wait for adapting come to just diff you. You need to be getting aggressive. Unfortunately, Sheento is going to be your target more often than not, but be blinking onto this Merlin and just try and get the value out of this Anubis pick. I used to be an Anubis hater, but with the change to a Plague of Locusts where you can actually move around, I think Anubis can be nuts if played aggressively. He's going to have to walk forward, though. Can't sit in the back line.
Basically, if you're going to take an aggressive pick like this, you got to play in an aggressive nature. Something the Gladiators, no stranger to doing so, but definitely need a step up from Snoopy on this selection to try and keep the Atlantis Leviathans down and extend the set for the Gladiators. Ishtar, man, how the mighty have fallen, Charlie. We used to have Ishtar, Cernunnos be the top 2 picks every single time you grab one, enemy team grabs the other. Now Ishtar falling down to 10th pick for the Atlantis Leviathans, not seeing nearly the same favoritism that Cernunnos has gotten, at least in recent weeks of play. So now we got a holistic look at the 2 compositions for these squads, Trelly. Talk to me about some of the win cons for the Gladiators. You mentioned Snoopy and Kyrmi kind of getting a little bit more involved, active on this Anubis Vamana combo. Where else maybe for the Gladiators can they step up to try and find those early game leads?
I mean, the mid 2v2 could be a good place to get active. You got to play around Serqet, though. You cannot let your Plague of Locusts get CC'd out. I think you insta-clear the wave if Snoopy's able to walk forward and just pop it, but if not, he's going to take a lot of damage. Adapting is likely going to sit around mid lane and try and focus out this Anubis pre-level 5, and because of that, Snoopy's going to have to watch the positioning. I'm thinking, Kyrmi might have to hang around Snoopy for a bit, sort of babysit him, get him to that level 5 point so he's not getting aggressed upon, but as I said, the aggression, if they're going in constantly, if they're blinking in, making use out of this Anubis pick, making use of the Aphrodite Vamana combo, the Gilded Gladiators could have something really gross here. It just depends on are they playing it safe, are they going in when they know they can, and are they playing around the CC that adapting provides? Because you got to remember he's playing hot right now. What, 9-0? Just finished a game on Serqet. Give it to him again. Could be looking gross early on.
Now, for the Gladiators here, Charlie, is this a composition that scales well as the game goes on? Is this one that gets maybe better as the game continues? Or is this a composition for the Gladiators that they definitely want to run maybe a bit earlier to try and get that lead so they have a safer late game against the Leviathans?
I would imagine they want to just get active early, but late game, if you let Anubis get full build and you have an Afro kiss to him, there could be... You can't just kill him when he's using his ultimate because he'll be immune for a bit. It just depends on how they play it. Again, this Afro pick, in my opinion, has always been how much value to get out of the ultimate. If you're not getting much value out of the ultimate, there's better supports. So we'll see how they play it.
Well, can the Gladiators find that value from the Aphrodite pick? Can they take us to game number 3? Before we can get there, though, we've got to make it through game number 2. We'll throw it to the casters.
That's right, and the Gilded Gladiators get a bit spicy in their picks and bans for game number 2. And Miff, some of the shortcomings of this Gilded Gladiators draft were Snoopy getting jumped on a whole lot, the Scarab's Blessing not returning perfect value. Now Snoopy's playing Anubis. He can move in as 1 now, but doesn't quite have a crushing wave to get out of fights.
Or an Atlas, a Yellow River.
I'm not sure the woes are over for Snoopy if the Leviathans were able to run back a similar play style.
Well, at least, it's a little bit easier to execute on Aphrodite Kiss to give over protections as opposed to Scarab's Blessing, which is a timed
that is true.
Interaction. So
that is true.
Trelli brings up a whole lot of potential power with the Aphrodite Anubis combo. I'm not sold personally. I don't think I'm not buying stock just yet, but
No.
I could break down the numbers. She gives over protections. That much is certainly true. Whether or not it's going to survive, like adapting, removing all the life steal, or fineokay punching you out of the Plague of the Locust,
Right.
or you miss a stun one time and you just die because you missed your stun.
Right.
Whether or not that's going to happen, we'll see.
Well, Ronngyu wants to do it again. Inbound is going to have to start soloing this purple buff. Rongyu's
he's
going to be
owning.
really slow.
You had to have known this was going to happen.
It stinks for Inbound. This just feels terrible. Rongyu's going to delay the wave out a bit as well. So it'll at least be a purple confirm for the Gilded Gladiators. And Ronngyu will not get any of the starting experience. But Zapman full on level 2. Begin to shove in this wave. If the I'm going to ask one of the two, depending on who we interview, if the Leviathans end up winning this set. Curious what the
Ooh.
goal is there. Adapting tossed aside. But there's still wave pressure mounting up over in the mid lane for the Atlantis Leviathans, so no real kill potential.
Goodness.
Inbound and Stuart get poked out early here. Terra, a little sustain. Could be a sustain-y wave, or lane rather, here over in duo.
Could be. Got to hit level 2 though to share some of that sustain. Sheento had plenty of experience with this last match, just getting bullied out by Kyrmi. Continues to do so here.
Adapting dashes through, gets stunned, gotta be first blood, and it is! The pathing there so interesting. He was out and then decided to go back through the Gilded Gladiators over in mid. And Kyrmi, who felt like the last bit of hope for the Gladiators in Game 1, starts off Game 2 with the first blood.
Yeah, I think Adapting tries to clear wave while Kyrmi's accosting Sheento. Realizes that his wave had been pulled away. Bobby, what happened? What?
No, but Rongyu's going to get traded out. He's still level
Surely.
1. And so Stuart will dash forward, and Kyrmi being here sends it right back. And Adapting actually hits level 2. Ronngyu does not. And so there's some of the shortcoming, I think, of the start that Ronngyu was looking for. Took a while to get that second level. Still.
Oh, he's still level
not
1.
there, right. And not before a kill goes over for the Leviathans, but does ultimately end up getting called out. Snoopy, without beads, could walk forward into a world of hurt here. Adapting, dashes forward, taunts Snoopy in. Does just poke down a little bit of damage.
Yeah, just too far away Sheento was to follow up.
Still level 1.
Well, yeah, but he's fine, right? I mean, you're so close to your tower. Now he's level 2.
There we go.
Yeah, he's got his dash.
That's all we've needed.
Yeah, I'm not certain that was a value trade for Ronngyu in the early. I mean, he certainly hurt Bobby just as much. And even in training
That's such a Mifflin mentality.
What do you mean?
Like, yeah, I'll inflict some pain upon myself as long as I'm also hurting my opponent.
Yeah, I'll flagellate so long as, they're also bleeding. Isn't that?
What'd you just say you're going to do?
That flagellate, isn't that when, they like...
That's like when you eat too many beans for lunch.
That's flatulence, man.
Oh.
No way! Flagellate's like, it's like the cat of nine tails, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I got it.
Do you?
No.
You're looking at me like you don't got it.
No. I knew you were not saying the other word, but I was just trying to play up a bit. I still don't know what the actual thing you're talking
It's
about
like
is.
when, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I get it. Snoopy hits level 5.
You don't get it.
No, I sure don't. I said I got it twice, and I don't. But Adapting hits level 5. Snoopy still 30 seconds left on those beads. Adapting tried to make use of that a few moments ago. Snoopy a smart enough player, though. You're probably sitting back a little bit, letting those beads come back off of cooldown before really stepping too far forward later on. Instead, Adapting will hover towards the left side of the map.
Bobby's got to be the target. Doesn't have ult yet.
No, still level 4, but Adapting won't go in. Has Blink. Won't use it just yet. Scared he gets pulled back. There's actually a decent amount of damage here from fineokay.
No ult.
No ultimate, though. You're right. Could be a 3 versus 3. Over on left. Adapting stunned. My goodness. Stuart set up so much of that. And that is quick burst onto the Leviathans jungler. Now the Gilded Gladiators jungler and Kyrmi. Good start to game number 2 at 2-0.
Yeah, Kyrmi said if I need to do it all, I'll just do it all a little bit faster here in game 2. involved in mid, now on left, playing spoiler to Adapting's game. A direct 0-2 to the 2-0 of the Vamana on the other side. But it hasn't put Kyrmi ahead, so who has it put ahead? You've got about a half-level lead for Inbound, maybe a level to a half-level for Snoopy. But as far as Kyrmi himself is concerned, behind, actually. Adapting hits 6 first. Look at farm on map. That's generally how you keep yourself honest. Are speeds up? No. Is green up? No. He's got back camps. Yeah, Kyrmi's just straight up behind, and he's getting invaded. What happens?
Adapting. Look, Adapting has changed his play style some over the years, but one thing he's always been is an adamant farmer. And we were wondering how that would interact with Sheento, who's one of the more farm-hungry mid laners in the league. Well, they haven't won just yet. Not sure it's caused trouble. And I mean, there's only so much trouble that's going to cause between Adapting and Sheento, but both been able to maintain their pretty high farm rates. Kyrmi just a bit behind, really. It's half a level or so, but it's still surprising considering the start that this Vamana was off to. What did we see last time? Transcendence, Stone of Binding from Adapting into Deathbringer a little bit later on. Could be a similar path here, and it is. And you maybe wonder, Miff, if that slows down the game for the Leviathans and their jungler here in the next couple minutes.
Well, definitely going to spend some time stacking up, but Serqet's ultimate's so powerful regardless of how much power you have or where your itemization is, that I think has the potential to get involved, even considering Vamana on the other side. I mean, Vamana, Trelly does a great job highlighting this on the desk. Needs itemization, generally doesn't get all that powerful until the crit stacked up a bit. Bladed Boomerang, generally that first up for him. Until then, you've got a bit of damage output. You've certainly got good disruption, that dash. Very good at making the team fight a bit more hectic for your enemies, but as far as actually securing a kill or being effective as a solo agent, it's going to be a while for Vamana, whereas Serqet's essentially there. Only going to get more powerful with time in the jungle spent stacking up that Transcendence.
Scary D over in the solo lane. He's going to be playing the Chaac game 2 here, Miff. We've had discussions about the Chaac, right? Whether we're full-on believers or not. Most of us saying not, however.
Yeah, you keep asking me, and then I got to give my opinion.
It is literally your job.
And then I get yelled at by the fans, and you never once gave your opinion, man.
Yeah, because my opinion only matters as far as if I think he looks cool and is fun to watch.
All right, well.
I think he looks cool, and he's fun to watch.
Oh, nice.
That's the only value that I can add. Might see him in a fight here as the junglers exchange blinks.
Call that the Dragon Ball. You know, they're just teleporting around.
Okay.
Oh, you don't get that one. Call that the, what have you seen? Call that the Jujutsu Kaisen, the way he's teleporting around.
Fantastic. Zapman left alone over in duo lane. Inbound is just hung out here with Stu. Ronngyu beginning some rotations out. Kyrmi over on left as well. Purple buff not up, so no invade to happen there, but a shield buff awaits. Adapting looking uninterested in any type of left side rotation instead. Eyes towards mid. Is some burn around the objective. I mean, neither team with a wide enough lead to really consider just an instant pull on the Gold Fury at this point. But blue buff about to respawn, and it looks like that's what fineokay and Adapting are considering. Seeing if you can slow down Scary D, who no longer has his ultimate. Should be straightforward, but an axe up and over the wall could confirm it here for Scary D, and there's no immediate counter gank from Kyrmi. Axe gets used. Adapting taunts in Scary. It actually could get a lot worse. Scary D again without ultimate is in some serious trouble. Not only doesn't get his blue, but gets handed a death. And Miff, it's a pull on the Gold Fury on the other side of the map, and this should be it for the Gilded Gladiators. No rotation from the Leviathans.
That's an Anubis special right there. Maybe the only mage that has more burn, or faster burn, than Merlin. So Snoopy, able to get involved. That Death Gaze making short work of the neutral objective. I think for now, a good trade for the Gilded Gladiators, who've been winning out pretty handily in the fight. But it is a concerning trend in this set, this unwillingness to help Scary D on the right-hand side, the complete willingness to leave him alone on an island, even when he's being accosted by Adapting repeatedly all throughout Game 1, now Game 2, starting to happen once more. If this Chaac is handled, if he's not able to stack up some of this defense, get some levels behind him, stack up some of that blue buff experience, could be that fineokay starts rotating out and is just able to output more pressure than Scary D. But I'm happy with the Gilded Gladiators where they are. They've established a small lead, to be sure, but a lead nonetheless. But the concern is with this unorthodox composition, how does it look in the 5-on-5 once we get there? Because at this pace, it seems the 5-on-5 is inevitable. We're not going to have one team, allegedly. I mean, I can't speak truly to the future, but it doesn't seem as if one team is going to start pulling away wildly, especially with all neutral objectives off the map and neither one starting up their siege. I'm concerned for the Gilded Gladiators and their ability to actually initiate fights, who's frontlining, who's stopping the dive from adapting. Feels like this is a Gladiators composition that is very good at winning, but you have to start winning first, right? And it hasn't necessarily stacked up that way.
Kyrmi's over on right, but nothing for fineokay to fight over. He's not going to step too far forward. Would require a big blunder here from Fino, I think, to open up to a gank. Scary D, actually.
He hits hard.
That's right. It's quite low, adapting. And then Sheento will be here shortly. And Excavate only hits Kyrmi. And adapting thought he might have the rotation through the lane, but Kyrmi takes the other route out. fineokay starting to warm up a bit here on this set. The King Arthur looked incredible, Myth. It was a vintage fineokay King Arthur game in game number 1, but can you match that? What?
What?
You're wincing at me.
I didn't wince.
Yes, you did.
I was smirking. I was
Was
happy.
it not a really good
No,
King
I was just
Arthur
thinking
game
it was
from
funny
fineokay?
that you said vintage, you know, that's all.
Yeah, because we haven't seen King Arthur in forever.
That's
So
true.
it's classic
Okay,
for
fair enough.
fineokay. Shoves Kyrmi aside. Is fineokay, and he's in trouble now. Double silence.
Vintage.
All right. You want to solo cast this?
No, dude.
Yeah, I didn't think so. That's a kill from the Gilded Gladiators on to fineokay, but it cost them 3 of their ultimates. Now 4 is Inbound. Use the Undying Love in an attempt to escape. Wonder if that opens up some freedom around this Pyromancer for the Leviathans.
I don't think so. No way they step up here. If anyone's pulling the pyro, it's got to be the Gilded Gladiators. Step forward. Leviathan's privy to it. Adapting starts his rotation back as well, but Gladiators got the numbers advantage.
They do. Not the ultimate advantage, though. That goes to the Leviathans. Inbound, sent back. Sheento's got a lot of damage to pull in this fight, and adapting will finish off the kill, but it's Ronngyu left alone. 3-man push from fineokay. It's vintage on the Hercules. Scary D now left running. This is where the Gilded Gladiators may fall apart. It's a 1-for-3 trade, and a 3-man push from Fino sets it all up.
Man, that is so tough for the Gilded Gladiators. I mean, timing could not have been worse there. fineokay beelines off spawn, gets re-involved in that fight. It just absolutely decimates the Gilded Gladiators, who had stacked up a bit too significantly. But that's another weakness of the Anubis, and something we're going to get used to seeing. Plague of Locust, it's knock-up immune, sure, so you're not going to get pulled by Fino, but he just walks you down, and he'll be able to with all this movement speed already stacking up in the build. Driving Strike's going to stop it every single time. The Gilded Gladiators got to find an answer to that at some point. For now, he's not exactly tanky, so if maybe Snoopy decides hit the wrap on the Hercules. Could be a bit different, but the Leviathans able to fight their way back in off of what seemed like a catastrophic early game. The Gilded Gladiators dominating. It's the Leviathans actually nursing a small lead.
Yeah, might even out a bit more, though, as the Primal Fury for Pyromancer will be traded. So, Pyro to the Leviathans, Primal to the Gladiators. That's a trade we've now seen just once, but both of the Furies in this game over to the Gilded Gladiators, who have controlled the objectives well. It's been a shortcoming of this team so far, so at least growth in the objective department. Another auto or two needed, but I suppose with Snoopy close by and Kyrmi hovering just to the left would have been too risky instead. Glad's duo lane, Stuart able to step forward and knock down the tier 1 over on left. Second tower of the game as fineokay, 2-level lead over Scary D, resulted in a kill on the right side of the map. This Hercules already causing some problems. But it's so close to what we were looking at in game 1, Myth, where Kyrmi's off. It's 2-0-3. Snoopy's fine, though. Snoopy has not been killed off quite as many times as he had in game number 1, and so this Anubis at least has been able to farm.
On an arguably less safe pick at that, this Anubis, I would have thought would have been the target of aggression, adapting. A great matchup, could just jump in there, use that ultimate, invalidate the lifesteal, the survivability that Anubis has, and just continue that fight. But so far, been very safe positioning from the Anubis and the Gilded Gladiators, and no opportunities to be had for the jungler on the Leviathans. But when we evaluate pace of game and trends, this Leviathan's core, what we had always said was if they could load in at 40 minutes, they would. From a dead even state, if that were an option available to them, they'd take it. And so far, by pace of game, we're essentially getting there. I mean, 25 minutes away from the exact 40-minute mark, but gold, all
We'll get there
even.
eventually.
Level 20s starting to creep up, or level 15 or so. And small pick opportunities like this could really start to cost the Gilded Gladiators. Kyrmi, fortunately for him, able to survive, but not without cost. Beads lost. Instead of using the Colossal Fury, that relic gone for the next 160 seconds.
Ooh.
Very susceptible.
Ronngyu blocked from getting a root. Scary D makes his way back to lane and didn't make much of a difference, but a nice play. Stun's not in from Zapman, adapting still in on the chase. Again, individual picks costing the Leviathans right now. They keep clawing themselves back into the game. Snoopy pushed back by fineokay. There's a beads awaiting around the corner. Zapman cannot step forward underneath the tier 1. Leviathans just haven't had the opportunity to really fight 5v5. Feels like they've been doing some good damage and hoping that the numbers less lopsided. Back off used once more, but back in go the Gladiators, adapting, and Sheento at flip sides with the Gladiators initiation. Scary D shoved against the tower, and fineokay is relentless. It's another push-pull combo, and this time
do it again.
hands over a kill onto Scary D. These mid-lane towers have been a wasteland for the Gilded Gladiators. And here in game 2, potentially no different.
Can't
One
stop
more on a Snoopy. What do you call it, Miff?
That's
from
vintage.
fineokay. 1-1-5.
Oh, he's looking like a 1930s coat, Dave. He's so vintage. Oh, my
A
God.
1910 Sauvignon Blanc from the valleys of California.
Are we sponsored? Can you call that out? Is that real even?
It's a wine thing.
Oh, I don't know.
It's a vintage
That's
wine.
not anime. That's not me.
All right.
God bless. fineokay can't keep getting away with this, Dave. This is just ridiculous. What was that, 3 pulls in the span of what is now 33 seconds, I suppose? That
Call him a
11-second
furry coat.
cooldown. He's vintage, man. I know. Is that real fur? It's gotta be.
No. Well, it could be so vintage that it's still allowed. That's not allowed anymore, so it could be that classic from fineokay. It might be. But unfortunately, it's also becoming a bit standard for the Gladiators to fight too heavily near these mid lane towers. That's been the bane of their existence so far this set. Really experienced the big difference maker here, Miff. Level in the jungle, 2 levels in solo, 2 levels in mid, 1 in ADC. And Inbound has a slight lead over Ronngyu, who has largely left Zapman up to his own devices and allowed him to farm. Oni Fury started by the Leviathans. Gilded Gladiators, for the first time this game, will be uninterested in the fight.
God.
Snoopy will lose just under half of his HP. The Gladiators actually rotating to the Pyro. It's a bit telegraphed. fineokay reads it.
Yeah, there's the stun combo, so had Snoopy been a little bit closer to that corner, so much damage could have gone into fineokay, but perhaps not communicated well between the Gilded Gladiators. And fineokay walks out, not worse for wear. The Gilded Gladiators, though, continue their grouping around this Pyromancer. If they can keep this pull up, prevent the Leviathans from heading back, that gold lead from the Fury itself won't really amount to much. Golden Pocket does nothing for you. So I like this call from the Gladiators, but they need to play careful. These pulls have been detrimental.
fineokay stunned. It doesn't
that's
really
big.
matter. Blinks have found Snoopy, and the Anubis has lived all game long, but that's changed in the last couple minutes. Except for Sheento, he's able to live. Both mid laners being dove, but it's actually Sheento and Zap, the 2 carries,
What up?
bonded in this team fight, sending all the damage back to the Gladiators. And my goodness, it goes nowhere. And the Atlantis Leviathans have found life in game 2.
The Gilded Gladiators fly a little too close to the sun, trying to keep up their aggression, but it's the Leviathans who just have the better team fight. It wasn't even a true 5-on-5. It was a separate 3v2 on either side. But the dive of the Leviathans has more success. The backline of the Leviathans, similarly, has more success. Probably has something to do with the experience at gold lead up until this point. The Gilded Gladiators just did not have a horse in that race. Need to remain a bit more grouped up. I think maybe Kiss target from Inbound likely should shift at this point. Snoopy has been handled. The adapting and fineokay together, just so disruptive for this Anubis that I think he'd be better off, Inbound that is, kissing Kyrmi or even Scary D to facilitate some of that dive. Protecting the backline, just doesn't seem to work. Stu, though, and good for you, Dave. Still 0 deaths in the set, but...
That's right. Yeah, I saw Stu out in the lobby after game 1. Because the Leviathans were joking with him a bit about how he escaped into the fountain at the end of game 1. And I overheard, and I said, no, that's my fantasy team ADC. I just leave the death spotless. And Stu said, I got you, don't worry.
Well, that's not good. He's a KD player?
No, I mean...
This guy's a KD player?
All right. You're the one insinuating that. All I'm saying...
is that he's got good KDs.
Is he's laughing, and although it's not the perfect outcome of game 1, finding some humor in a moment where the Leviathans were joking with him about surviving, and I was letting him know that I appreciate it. You're putting all these negative headlines out there, Miff, and it's unbelievable.
Professional provocateur, Dave.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get clicks, all right? That's all I'm trying to do. It's for the YouTube shorts at youtube.com/SMITEPro.
Yeah, Miff, you pop up and I'm clicking X.
No. No, thumbs up.
Yeah, maybe. I'll thumbs up. Leviathans now really rolling in game 2. You wonder if that's the moment. It's the mid lane fight again. That just tilts things ever so heavily in favor of the Leviathans. Now in FG. Luckily for the Gladiators, teams have found it difficult to end these games prior to 30 minutes, so you probably got another Fire Giant or 2 to maybe put up a defense, find a fight, find a pick. But it's going to have to be a massive turnaround from this point. And fineokay has got to stop hitting these pulls. Inbound lives, but really just barely pulled back in. 1 and 4 on Inbound, 1 and 3 on Snoopy. And Miff at 0 and 4 on Scary D. It feels like we found our way back to the exact same KDAs we were at in game number 1.
Yeah, I'm getting deja vu. The Leviathans, once they've established control of the map, don't seem to let go of it. Goldfree will be spawning shortly, but I imagine they'd like to do a little bit more with the last 40 seconds of their Fire Giant, potentially.
Don't know.
A fight in the jungle, maybe a tier 2 siege. Ronngyu, stunned, but escapes the damage.
Is this really a good idea? That's the question. Have the Gladiators baited themselves in? Scary D sure has. He'll die. No, he won't. Yes, he will. Sheento flickers forward. Kyrmi. Again, it's the Vamana's worked. When there's a little bit of help, he's just not been able to get any kills in the back line. The Gladiators think they have an opening, but in reality, they're just creating one for the Leviathans. Inbound tossed aside. And one more over to Sheento in this fight.
Gladiators are so concerned with if they could, they never thought if they should,
Did
Dave.
you just come up with that?
I am so quotable,
Oof,
man. They got to stop taking these fights.
Close from Snoopy, though.
Hail Mary. What's going on?
I don't know. Snoopy sent out his ult right over the wall. Actually got Zapman nearly caught off guard. Actually, I think took the Aegis away from Zap. So a small victory for Snoopy in a game that's been marred by losses. Mid lane Phoenix. I mean, if you're the Gladiators, you'd love the chance to fight under one of your birds instead of just out randomly in the jungle. Unfortunately, that will not be the case. And it's simple from this point, isn't it, Miff? I mean, you're at the 22-minute mark. Fire Giant falls off. You'll get gold. Everyone's going to have around 2K plus in hand to go back and spend. Fully realize this gold lead. Gladiators maybe shouldn't step up to the FG, 11,000 down. And pretty clear avenues to victory for the Leviathans' first win of the year.
Yeah, I'm thinking the Gilded Gladiators are praying for a couple of things. Maybe a stray lightning strike onto the studio. Perhaps a critical server error.
Well, the weather outside was looking nice earlier.
Oh, it's beautiful out there.
Yeah, huh?
Could still pray.
I guess.
Put your hands together. I mean, this is 99% odds now for the Leviathans. Their siege is strong. Their team fight has been nearly unstoppable. Nobody's found an answer to Sheento. Adapting 5, 2, and 7.
Wow, they might
looking
not
very
even get
good.
tier 2.
They're not getting a tier 2.
No.
Adapting's
Well,
there.
Adapting's here, yeah.
He does so much damage.
Too much damage. Adapting could be in trouble, though. Look at the mini-map. Everyone but Scary D is rotating to left underneath this tier 2.
I don't think he is.
But because he's smart enough. Adapting is smart enough to back away, right? He's not going to get baited in.
He's been around the block a few times. He knows how these go.
He's won a thing or two.
Yeah, once or twice.
Once or twice he has. But can Adapting slow down the backs now of a couple members of the Gilded Gladiators? Is the Fire Giant just going to turn into a simple Phoenix siege? Because Kyrmi gets back, and so does Inbound. So now it's actually Adapting who's left over on the left side of the map. But Snoopy, my goodness.
Watch him heal up off this wave. Okay, his team cleared the wave, but he was gonna.
Yeah, he thought about it. He has the ability to. Luckily, there's a fountain just behind if he needs it.
No,
Scary
there's
D has
another
to
wave.
step forward. Oh my God! What is the chunk damage onto Scary D?
He's surely fine.
0-6 on the Chaac. Miff, you were saying you're not a fan of it. Maybe this is why. Feel better. about your decisions.
Oh, man.
And Zapman on a triple has sealed the deal on this game.
Quad?
A quad from Zapman. Stu, my 80K,
Sheento?
you won't get it. Sheento's on a rampage. 5 kills in the game for Sheento. And Zapman nearly had 5 in a row. That's vintage from Zap as well, who was around in 1910. Drinking that one we were talking about. 4 kills to end this game. The Gilded Gladiators, they'll fall, and the Leviathans will grab their first win of the year.
Leviathans a bit back in form here, clearly. I mean, that is a convincing win, and in the market or in the race for one of the fastest that we've had so far this year. Gilded Gladiators got to get back to the drawing board, man. Compositionally, didn't love what they were bringing. Strategically, didn't love what they were doing. Leviathans, though, I mean, that's all good.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine.
That's a 2-0 right there.
It's fine from the Leviathans. They picked up the pace a bit here in Game 2 as well. I talked about how teams have had difficulty closing games out before the 30-minute mark. Was not an issue when teams are bringing themselves to you to kill off before the siege even really happened. So it's Fire Giant plus a pretty easy team fight there at the end. We joke about fineokay and the performances, but really he was lights out today. The
And
setup
he's not
on
a
King
coat.
Arthur.
Yeah, we were making that up.
He was wearing one in the bit.
Was he? I was calling him
Oh,
one.
you were calling him one.
And he's not, okay?
He's not.
No matter what you read in the tabloids, that's a real human.
Missed the one writing the tabloids. Atlantis Leviathans, they get their first win of the year, and it's convincing 2-0 over the Gilded Gladiators, searching for their first win. Miff and I have, I think, broken it down a bit, but the desk will certainly fix that.
We'll certainly do the best that we can. For the Atlantis Leviathans, a 2-0 now over the Gilded Gladiators. And that said, a much faster pace in game number 2, Charlie. And that one, man, it felt like it started off so well for the Gladiators. You get this Anubis going. You get them rolling a little bit there. Inbound's actually doing pretty well. Kyrmi as well. Strong rotations from this Vamana over to dual lane to kind of get things rolling out for the Gladiators. But then it just felt like once we started getting to these team fights, once we started getting to this actual fighting portion, there just was a lack of value, I would maybe say, from the Chaac out of Scary D. It just felt like such a scattered team fight coming from the Gladiators.
And isn't that sort of always the conversation we have about this team? Unfortunately, it's just, once you get to that point in the game, the team fight looks a bit scattered. The draft really wasn't coming together. It was nice to see how much damage Snoopy was able to do. I liked the Anubis pick more than the Hebo pick, just in this matchup entirely, but it just seemed like fineokay was on an absolute tear. He was dishing up so many free kills for the squad. Of course, Adapting got rolling once again on the Serqet despite falling down early. He was still up in farm as we highlighted. Kyrmi had like 2 kills and Adapting had died twice but was still up in farm. That's the kind of plays you can expect from him. Just the 5v5 in general just looked much stronger there. And unfortunately for Zapman, gets his penta stolen there at the end, but it's just what you come to expect. I think the Leviathans needed this win, given the tenure on this squad. We were expecting the win from them, and a quick 2-0 is exactly what they ordered.
Leviathans took them a little while in game number 1, but game number 2 definitely shored up some of those weaknesses from the game 1 woes. And again, as you highlight, Zapman so close to getting that penta. Didn't even get to really turn around and try and get the last shot with it, just taken away by Sheento during all of that one. So no penta for Zapman, but at the end of the day, he does get a win for himself and the team. A 9-0 for Zapman, 9-0-4, and then 5-0-12 for Sheento. The carries undying for the Atlantis Leviathans. But I think the fineokay show, at least during a lot of these team fights, as you highlight, as the casters brought up a lot there, fineokay doing a lot of heavy lifting with those team fights.
Did the casters bring it up?
They said he was very vintage.
Huh. Interesting.
A vintage performance from fineokay.
I was a big fan of it as well. I think the Hercules just is something that he can bring, right? He's got the pulls, and it's a pick that probably shouldn't be going back to him. It's because I think he was setting up a lot for the squad.
fineokay and the Leviathans come up with a big 2-0, but we've got the coach for the Leviathans actually standing bound for our post-game interview.
Yeah, Slaney's here with me, and Slaney, you were just mentioning to me, I'll allow you to let the viewers in on it. Were scrims indicative of the play that you saw on field today? Did scrims give you confidence coming into this week?
I think we beat Ronnie's worst ever loss rate. We went 1-16.
1-16 across scrims
this week. So, but I mean, it's like the age-old classic. You lose scrims, you win games. I wish it worked for yesterday, but
I'm trying to think how many. So it's 17. Is it 17 sets or individual games?
Individual games.
So is that across 8 scrim sessions though? Like, did you get 2-0'd a bunch and then
I
win?
think we had one day canceled as well. So I think it was across like 3 days. It was
Gotcha.
It was a pretty rough
all that matters is that we finally get the win in the win column, right? It's not the dream start to the season, but I think you start to see some stuff come together. What do you think worked so well for the team today?
I think we spent a lot of time working on how we want to like shot call. We have a lot of people on the team that talk a lot. I mean, we have like 4 shot callers basically on the team. So making sure everyone on the same page has been like pretty tough for us. But I think today we've did a really good job of like just making sure we're all on the same page and we're all like having the same goal and objectives throughout the game. And I think it showed today. So
if you can, give me a glimpse and feel free to reveal as much or not as you want. But Ronngyu with a very different start today from what we've seen. Sort of solo invades purple start. What's the decision making behind that if you feel comfortable?
I mean, supports don't really matter. Like if you can just spend time getting 2 people behind for your own and you're also putting your ADC ahead at the same time. I mean, I think the Glads had a really good answer to it in Game 2. I think what they did was really smart. But it's just a start that we've been enjoying. I think it gives us like a direction of what we want to do. It gives us a lead in a lane that we know we can play off of. So
gotcha. Well, look, it works out, and it was a convincing win from the Leviathans. Congrats on the win. Many more this year. We'll go back to the desk.
And with that, the Atlantis Leviathans are able to find their first set win so far in this phase, so they will not be a purely defeated team any longer, finding their victory over the Gilded Gladiators. We can take a look, though, at the remainder of our day and our weekend as we jump over to the schedule. Still one more set to go. If you missed out on anything today, well, you missed the Jade Dragons and the Ravens square off a 2-1 for the Dragons to start our day out. And then we just finished up our 2-0 Leviathans versus Gladiators. Still one more set with the Camelot Kings and Eldritch Hounds to close out our day. And then make sure, again, to tune back in tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern as we start it all back again. 3 more sets hot and ready to go to close out week number 2 in our phase of the Road to Masters. We can take a look at the standings as well. Now with a win by the Atlantis Leviathans, they'll be able to bump themselves out of that 4th place seed and into 3rd with finally being able to find a win under their belt. Gilded Gladiators still have one more set to go this weekend to see if they can find themselves success in week number 2. I believe that one is up against the Eldritch Hounds tomorrow. And speaking of the Hounds, it's them and the Camelot Kings are going to be the next 2 teams to face off to round out our Saturday. And Charlie, I'm a little bit excited for this one. The Eldritch Hounds seem a little fired up to be able to go up against the Camelot Kings, but Camelot Kings still trying to hold on to that undefeated record.
And that's always fun, right? Now there's only 2 more teams that still have that record, so the Oni Warriors and the Camelot Kings want to keep holding on to that. And of course, the Eldritch Hounds, they want to get their first win. You know, that's what the Gilded Gladiators were looking for here. That's what the Leviathans were looking for here. The Leviathans were able to find it. Eldritch Hounds, they've got a lot to prove. It's one of those matchups that you're going to go in favoring the Kings, but anything could happen. If you get a good draft, you get a good early start, anything could happen.
I mean, we saw just a little bit even in that very first game with the Leviathans trying to catch the Gladiators off guard. But as I said, we still got one more game to go, so make sure you stick around. We'll be back in just a few minutes with our 3rd set of the day.